Doherty's in town!
If you've ever wondered how I became a professional wrestler and started Rise Underground, England's maddest wrestling show, well, in this very first YouTube episode of O'Doherty's Den, that's exactly what you're going to find out.
I'm a sailor pig, and I lost my leg! Climbing up the top sails, I lost my leg!
The start of Rise and my career as Danny O'Doherty, the lone traveller, go hand in hand. As you'll see from this video we're about to watch now from September 2013, which was filmed by Kirsten, who does all the ringside video at Rise to this day.
Danny O'Doherty has been fighting since he was a young boy. At the age of 10, he had his first organised fight and believes he was born to be a fighter.
You see, I've been fighting for most of my life. Since I was a young boy, I've been fighting. See, I had my first organised fight when I was only 10 years old, against a boy that was 2 years older than me, and I beat him. And since that day, I've been on a path. I've been on a path that's led me to where I am now, and that's taken the transition from the world of bare knuckle boxing into the world of professional wrestling. So I came up with the shots and the scenes. She helped film it, and then I did the editing. She was also making a documentary at the time for a uni project, which was about me starting up Rise and all these early matches I had as the lone traveller. And this is part of that documentary she made. Look how young I am on here. First show, we want you to want the next, when's the next show? We want people who want to buy tickets and come to the next show. That's why we sort of sticking with these characters. We're going to make our own characters. All the best wrestling promotions worldwide have created their own stars, and that's it. It's about creating your own stars and getting these characters people can relate to and like love to boo these certain people and love to cheer these people, and we'll leave it all as cliffhangers so that they want to know when the next show is and they're going to come to the next show. It's about creating that sort of rapport with our audience where they want to come back each time, and that's the main thing that we want to achieve really. It's about, we're not too interested in making profit on the first 2 or 3 shows. I'm willing to take losses, but I mean it's all about just getting those initial crowd, getting your audience, and then each time building on your audience. For me, it's I'm wanting to make a living from wrestling. That's my dream, is to make money from wrestling. And since day one, since I started 6 months into it, I knew, like I said, the minute I decided it's a possibility to have a career out of it, I knew that it would take years until I started making money that I could actually live it off, and this is why I'm here at uni and stuff. So as I was saying, way back then in 2013, I had been wrestling for a few years up to that point. I'd been training originally when I was 15. I started in 2007, but I'd been backyarding before that for years. Me and my mates all used to backyard wrestle in whoever's garden we could get in, really. It was either my garden or me nana's garden, or we'd get into someone's farmyard and do matches in there sometimes. And it all started because I got a camera for Christmas one year. And here it is, here, this bad boy. Old school as you like. So with this camera, I'd have everyone putting matches on and I'd be filming them and editing them when I got home on me VHS player originally. So I was putting these onto VHS and like doing like as basic editing as you could do. I don't know how I was doing it, like somehow layering titles over onto them and stuff like that. I've got all the VHSs at my mum's house, and I've got all the original tapes, the lot, so I'll have to dig them out one day. But I've got a few clips, as you can see now. And there I am in the backyard. These are the clips that I managed to find that were on one of my old computers. Somehow I must have like burnt them off onto DVD, but these are the only clips I do have. And that was all filmed on this camera. So as I say, I got that for Christmas one year, and I'd be organising all these matches. So I'd be like, right, at school, at break time, I'd be saying, right, tonight we've got a show. You're wrestling him, and he's wrestling you. And I'd be coming up with all the storylines, and I'd be saying, this is what's going to be happening, and blah, blah, blah. So I'd have them every night. We'd be doing shows, and then I'd be going home, editing them, and I tried to start my own website. I think I had like a Pixel website at the time for it. And then one day, we'd been doing it for about 2 years up at this point, and they all took me aside one day and were like, right, we've had enough. We don't want to wrestle anymore. We're sick to death of it. None of us love wrestling like you do. We'd rather play football. So I couldn't believe it. I was like, what do you mean? You don't want to wrestle? And later on that night, we had another show. Because I made sure they were convinced again that it was all, we were going to be superstars and all this stuff. And I said, wait till people see it online, and then we'll all be famous, and then you'll be happy you were doing it. So I'll just edit that bit out, man. Danny O'Doherty's in town. The lone traveller. I came for fair play, I came for good fair fight. Clean sword. Big or small, fight them all. All yous at Rad Pro can form a queue to come and fight me. I'll knock every single one of them out. Don't be skipping the queue, boys. Because the only queues you'll be skipping is the queue to the hospital. So after a few years of backyarding, when we were about 15, we finally found out that there was actually training we could go to in Newcastle, which was, well, it was the closest we could find, but it was still a trek away, because we used to have to get buses at about 7:30 in the morning to get the training for like midday or something. So we'd be on buses all morning at 15-year-old, 16, going to these training sessions, because I'd found on the internet this place called WZW, and it was in a rough, dodgy council estate in like Walkergate or somewhere like that in Newcastle. And we turned up for the first time after finding this advert on the internet. We couldn't believe it. We thought you had to go to the United States to train, or down south to London. We didn't realise you could actually train in Newcastle. So, like I say, we got the buses, we went, and there was no social media to like confirm if it was going to be on or anything like that. We just had to hope. So we turned up, and we knew that Iceman was going to be the trainer. This is the fellow we'd read about on the internet. This Iceman, and he was apparently from Bishop Auckland, which made it even more crazy to me, because I couldn't believe that there was even another wrestling fan in Bishop Auckland, never mind a wrestler. There was me and my best mate at the time, and that's the only people who like wrestling. Obviously all the other mates at school, I used to make them play wrestling. We used to force them to, because there was nothing else. Me and my mate wouldn't do anything else, so that was all we had a choice to play.
Iceman, he's gone home. What? He's gone home. He's shit his pants. Because when he was out here in the pre-show and he was looking round, and he realised what he let himself in for, he wasn't capable of doing it. He's gone home. He's gone straight up the A1 back to Bishop Auckland, and he's proved that there's only one king from Bishop, and it's Danny O'Doherty.
So anyway, when we got to that training session, we thought Iceman was going to be there. So this big, and I'll apologise to Iceman now for this story, this big lad turns up, And we thought, hey, is that ice? We were like walking from a distance. We thought, is that Iceman there? Must be. So we walked up to him. Excuse me, are you Iceman? And he turned around and he went, no, mate, I'm the Tank. And the Tank turned out to be a trainee who only came for a couple of sessions. And I might tell stories from them early days at WZW because there's some absolute hilarious tales I have about them first few sessions I did. So we stuck in anyway for a few months, going to this place in Newcastle, going on all the buses. It was when I'd first started going out drinking down the town as well. So even though I was waking up with the worst hangovers of my life, I was getting on them buses, puking sometimes at the side of the road, and then still going to training. And the training sessions were insane. All these crazy burnout drills we used to do and that. That was like also a proper old school way of training. It was not easy at all to get into the business. And that was 2007, or I think it was, yeah. It was the night of SummerSlam, Rise on the Brain. 2007 was the first time I ever went to training. And that was the session that, no it wasn't, because that was the one that wasn't open. We turned up to where I'd thought the Tank was Iceman, and it turns out training wasn't even on, no one showed up, so we sat out there for hours all day long. Finally got picked up by my mate's mum, I think, and it turns out we got home and it was on the news someone had been stabbed round the corner that same day where we'd been sat waiting all day for training. But we did go back the next week again, because we were keen as mustard and we thought, hopefully this week it is on, and lo and behold it was on, and the first time I saw the ring I couldn't believe it. I was like starstruck by the wrestling ring itself, because I'd never seen one in real life or been anywhere near it. In the end, it was just me going to training on my own at one point, so there was no way they could keep the school open. It relocated to somewhere else, which is these pictures here that you'll see. This was the gym that it relocated to, so there's me at 16-year-old. And there was only Dave Carbon, the trainer, there and me at one session, so they couldn't keep it open and that was it. It shut down, WZW. So I didn't have nowhere to train for a couple of years, and I had all them problems at home, like I've spoke about on that video that I posted on Facebook the other week. So it was about a year and a half later, right at the start of 2010, when I went to CRW in Newcastle, found another place, and we thought, here we go, here's another place. It was my best mate again, and we were like, right, that's it, we'll go to this one now. This is going to be spot on. And it was right under the train tracks in Newcastle, perfect location. I'd already got my driving license, so it was easier this time. We could drive through. So anyway, we showed up, and we thought it was going to be like WZW, proper old school, and you had to like earn your spot and all that, and like trainees were the trainees and the wrestlers were the wrestlers. But this was like a youth club when we turned up, different altogether, because it was like just these two lads, Ken and Andy, who'd like basically bought a ring. They'd been backyarders themselves. They bought a ring and got this unit, hired this unit, and started a training school. So basically no one had any idea what they were doing, and them days were absolutely hilarious. That's where I met Caden for the first time, Michael Caden, who turned out to be my best mate ever since then. I met Saxon there, Saxon Huxley, there he goes. I met HT Drake there, the gimmick killer. So I've got loads of stories, and all the names that were involved on some of these stories are mind-blowing, like some of the biggest wrestling names in the world that we ended up involved with in these crazy situations. So I'm going to do a full episode about CRW with Caden, because there's so much to talk about when it comes to CRW in 2010-11 that we're going to have to do a full episode about that. So he's going to join me for the next episode. So after we'd got a few matches under our belt at CRW, one of those matches being when Caden, you might not know this, wrestled Pac. Me and Caden started looking further afield, and we managed to get booked in UKW down here in Yorkshire. And this again is worth its own episode itself, because when we were travelling down to UKW, this is when we came up with all the ideas for Rise itself. And this is a time when me and Caden actually wrestled each other at UKW. Road to the Gold. There's me, Dangerous Jason Daniels. And there's Caden, the prime Suicide Youth himself. The Yorkshire legend, Suicide Youth Caden. But it was coming home from these shows where we started discussing the initial plans for Rise, and that was where the concept came into being, because we were seeing all these different shows we were part of, and we were seeing everything that was done wrong, and we were seeing everything that was done right. So we were thinking, well, why do all these promotions do these certain things? And why don't they do these other things that we know work? Because me and Caden have a very similar mind when it comes to wrestling. And he'd been trained at WZW as well. That was where he first started training. So it was completely separate to me, though, a couple of years earlier. That by chance he'd actually trained at WZW as well, and that was what we first bonded over when we met each other at TRW, was the fact that he'd trained at WZW as well. So we knew the proper way.
Video.
Yep, this is
Right,
the
what
day
the
after.
hell happened last night? What happened?
I'm hungover to bits, right?
Wait,
I woke up on Dan's couch. Your dog speed me through a painting.
So here we are at Weatherby Services, and this is where me and Caden, on the way down to Wakefield, we'd stop off for a quick piss and something to eat. And this will have been 9, 10 and 11 years ago when we were coming down to the shores in Wakefield, and this is the first time we'd ever left the northeast to travel anywhere. So it was all like a novelty to us coming down here.
Were you nearly at UKW?
Yeah.
I think we've remembered most of what happened.
Remember some of what happens?
We wrestle each other, and if we wrestle each other, apparently we have to have a classic.
Yeah, we have to have a class.
We absolutely hungover as fuck. I've got like...
And this was the direct link to how we ended up going to Leeds for the very first time, and I ended up moving to Leeds, and that's where we started Rise, was because there was a UKW show. The snow was that bad on the way down to this show that we got there and we thought, there's no way this show's going to last, because by the time we even got there, the snow was already a few inches deep, and it was in the Thunderdome in Wakefield, this place that UKW had, like a old, I don't know what it was, like a factory old unit or something, this big old unit, warehouse thing.
Right, we hit the venue and wrestling cable
We just watched the videos from last night.
saying we wanted to put Rindy match. He said you'll be getting a back out middle if he's looking honey.
So anyway, this show where the snow was falling, it got worse and worse as the show was going on. We were there freezing to death, so it got called off. And I drove down all the way from up home in the northeast, all the way down to Wakefield. So we were thinking, well, are we even going to get home here? The snow's that bad. We'll be lucky if we get out of up the hill out of where the unit was.
Wow, man, look at that.
Do you understand what I'm wearing? What I'm doing? I've drove to Wakefield to dress like this. I thought it would be funny to wear that down with Caden, and he's going to take us in the match, man.
So we were halfway to Leeds anyway. We could see Leeds in the distance. So I thought, right, we're going to have to just pull over and just hope for the best and we'll figure something out. So we kept going. We got into Leeds and we managed to pull into this car park. And it's where now it's all been built on. There's a big multi-storey car park there now. But at the time, right near where the cockpit is, there was a car park just opposite. So we pulled into that car park, the only one there, completely snowed in. We thought, once we're in here, we'll never get out. So we thought we're going to have to just probably accept it and think we're going to have to spend the night in Leeds and sleep in the car, freezing cold, and then try and drive home the next day. So we had a quick walk around and we heard music coming from this place, and Caden was saying, hey, that's the cockpit, I've heard about that. Let's go in there. And they let us in for now for some reason, so we didn't even have to pay, and we thought, here, this is class already. We haven't paid in, it was supposed to be a £5 in. They let us in for now because they thought we were in a band. And then they started calling us Bon Jovi. So went to our heads and we thought we were superstars as soon as we got in there. So we were walking around and we thought, imagine putting a wrestling show on in here. And I thought, this is the place. We'd been talking about Rise all the time on these car journeys. And I thought, and this is absolutely perfect. It's the perfect atmosphere, alternative venue, rock music, and it would have been the ideal place for this over-18s concept that we were coming up with. But we got beat to the punch on that one, and Tidal ended up running a show at the cockpit in 2013, just before I managed to get in there. So I was unlucky that I got beat to it, but it did work out in our favour in the end when we look back. So I realised, much like we were going to have to do with Rise and make it different to stand out, I realised I was going to have to do that with my own character. Because all these different characters and gimmicks I'd been trying out, where I was Dangerous Danny Chaos, I was the Party Boy, and I was Jason Daniels, the future Jason Daniels, I think I was called when we were at UKW. I had a few different names when we were at UKW. But I was just experimenting, trying to come up with something that stood out. And it was after I'd done the UKW shows, I'd gone to this tryout match at NJW, which was in Keighley and Bradford. So I went to that, and I did the tryout match, and it was absolutely rotten. Decent enough in-ring match, but I mean, the character just wasn't there. There wasn't anything that stood out about us. So it was when I got home from that night, and I'd actually moved to Leeds at this point, that I realised that I was going to have to completely reinvent myself and come up with something that was totally unique, start from scratch. So that was around about 2012 and 13. At that point, I thought, I'm not going to carry on getting any more bookings anywhere until I've got this character nailed, till I've got it down, and I know exactly what I'm doing. So I went home that night, went on the internet, and bought a pair of knuckle dusters, and I couldn't find them from anywhere, because I'd been sort of coming up with the idea and flirting with this idea of doing this lone traveller gimmick for a few months leading up to this. So I did them first few shows in the Northeast, and I created documentary style short videos around the matches I was doing. So with this character and these videos, which no one else was doing anything like this at the time, I quickly did pick up some momentum and wrestled all over the Northeast, and then actually ended up getting booked by Tidal in Leeds at the university. So that was my very first match in Leeds, and it was against Sean Only, of all people. And it's about time I start looking further afield. So here I am in Leeds, and in 2 weeks today, February the 8th, I'm going to the Leeds University Union for Tidal Championship Wrestling, and I'm going to be fighting one of the hometown heroes, Sean Only. Well, listen to me, Sean. The only thing that's going to be happening on February the 8th is go getting sparkling out, Bonnie lad. You're a big lad, ripped to shreds, and they say you're a student of the martial arts. Well, it's only fitting we're fighting in the university, isn't it, Sean? Because I've got a degree in knocking people out. You stay there, Bonnie lad. Danny O'Doherty's in town, February the 8th. And I'm coming for fair fights and clean sport. So now we needed a venue to get Rise off the ground. We'd tried everywhere in Leeds. We'd been turned down at the Left Bank Centre, that we'd had that show cancelled, and we'd already announced the show as well, so we had to make up for it. And I'd been for all these meetings with the venue, planning the show, explaining to them what it was all about, but they were very sceptical, and it did take some work to get it confirmed in the first place. Because we wanted the venue to be something special, didn't we? We didn't just want to do it in a bog standard room, like you see most promotions when they start off. So anyway, I'd been getting all these announcements out, started all the social media pages. It was set to go for March 2014, and they pulled the plug. So we were left without a venue in Leeds, because I'd tried everywhere. So we thought, right, we've got a few months now to get our heads sorted out, figure out what we can do. And it was at this point we thought, what about Middlesbrough?
Well, I think what was happening at the time is we were still wrestling on these smaller sort of shows. And I was living in Teesside. You'd lived in Leeds for a point in this time, so we were going through having drinks with each other. And it was one or two things that were a combination to it. One, we were wrestling for UKW on the Saturday. And what's the promotion called? Spitty's promotion?
Oh, First Class Wrestling.
First Class Wrestling with some of our buddies was on in Middlesbrough Town Hall.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, why don't we make a weekend of it and just go, see our buddies wrestle, go to an all-star show and just have fun. Just sit in the crowd and just watch wrestling, because we love wrestling. And it was there.
Is that where we went to the walkabout before?
Before, during, after.
Yeah, I thought this was absolutely amazing, but you can't even get a beer, so what's the point of being here? You know what I mean?
We probably won't make it till the end of the show. Shoot.
Yeah, I know, we'll be so gagging for
No,
the beer.
should we go for a pint in the mission?
Yes, we'll down a pint in the joint.
Yes, we're going to have a joint in the mission.
I need a pint is what I need.
No, film where we're at.
Hey, do you understand what we're going on about now? He knows
Over the road from the venue, there's a walkabout, so we'd went there, and we'd been all over Middlesbrough that day just drinking, and we'd sort of thought, well, why don't we give Middlesbrough a go? Like, that's when it first got planted in our head, because we went to Sumo afterwards, which is like the big night
and
venue.
That was our aim, wasn't it?
That was our aim. Well, it was that night we were wandering around like, fucking hell, this is the venue we've been dreaming of, and it's right under our noses. Like, imagine if a ring was there. Imagine this. Imagine that. So that got the wheels definitely in motion.
Because that was the thing that helped us come up with the concept for Rise, was going on all these nights out, and we would talk to people in the smoking area, and we were always surprised how many people loved wrestling. Because we always thought, we were told not to run shows in Leeds or Middlesbrough because they're so hard to draw in, but we'd always thought differently from what we'd experienced. That first time we ever went to Leeds at the Cockpit, and they were all wrestling fans, and we went a few times after that, and like I say, it all worked out. Fate happened, and I got moved to Leeds, and we were just, every night out, it was just all wrestling, wasn't it? And when we went to Middlesbrough, and we went to that show, and we saw that they were able to do it for a family show, first-class wrestling, it was in the town hall, wasn't it? And they got a brilliant draw, and we thought, you know what, it's worth a bash, this. But it was a different kettle of fish altogether trying it over 18s, wasn't it?
Well, that's one thing that halfway surprised me, that, like, it wasn't just kids and that. There was a couple of lads our age in the crowd that just went.
When the Bullet Club were first
Yeah,
getting
we
over
were
and
seeing
stuff, wasn't
Bullet
it?
Club cheats at family shows, and then we'd go on these nights out and we'd just have our mind blown. We'd be sat in beer gardens, and there was one time in particular, we were sat in a beer garden, and there was two girls sat near us, and we heard them mention something, and this is not an exaggeration. The conversation they were having was which bushwhacker would they rather sleep with, and that's like, and these were two pretty girls from Middlesbrough. They were just like, so we went over and we started talking to them, and then they were just, the stuff they were coming out with was ridiculous.
She said that a prime 96 dead man was the fittest man alive and all that, wasn't it?
And that's just like the Middlesbrough mentality. Like, you'll be in a smoking area. There was one time we were in a smoking area at Sumo, and this lad, he started talking to us about wrestling. We hadn't even brought it up, and he told us he was spending his Monday nights, and this was before the network as well, watching every episode of 98 Raw back
From start
to finish chronologically. So we're just like, there's definitely something here. And you'd go to Sumo and everyone would love wrestling. But at the time as well, we're 22, 21-year-old kids. Like, you know,
So we were clueless.
we were utterly clueless. If you look back at the original things we thought we were going to do, it's ridiculous. But then there was one day, and I remember we'd been to loads of different bars, like just pubs, day drinking places. And there's a place that's infamous in Middlesbrough called the Crown. And it's like a really sort of like, I think
A bingo hall.
it
was a cinema
legit. It was a
originally.
cinema. Then it was a bingo hall, and then I think in the late 90s it was a really popular nightclub. So we'd went in this place just for a drink, and we went to the bar. And this is not an exaggeration. Like, alcohol was cheaper than water. I think any pint was $1.50, and then these huge jugs of
Two for
two.
£8.
It was
two for
$7.50.
Yeah.
Two for $7.50 on these, like, ridiculous. So we were sat there, and we sort of got this. It's like, look, we're gonna have to just go ask. We'll feel like shit if we don't even just ask. It's right in front of us. And one of us went up to the bar and went, look, I know it sounds dodgy. Do you have gigs on and stuff here? I said, oh, well, we're open to anything. And that's when we said, would you be interested in having a wrestling show? And we were expecting this, like, whatever,
sort of
kids,
palm us
yeah.
off. And the two lads that ran it was like Lauren and Hardy, wasn't it, who ran it? Dumb and Dumber. And it was hilarious because... Oh yeah, we did. Originally, we were supposed to have the Chuckle Brothers on one of the first Rise shows. They were going to set the tables up to meet you, weren't they? Yeah, and then the Sumerian Death Squad, Tommy End and Michael Dante. But Tommy End did wrestle on one of our shows before he went off to greener pastures, like, didn't he? So we did get that. But we went into the Crown and we looked there and we thought, this is unbelievable. Imagine a ring, and it is to this day, I think, the best venue in Europe for wrestling. If we could have able to have even ran a few shows there, we'd have been on a different platform altogether, wouldn't we?
But sometimes that's for the best, you know. Look at where we are now. But it would have been if we'd have got them initial runner shows instead of just them initial few shows.
Because we had so many hiccups, didn't we? Get
Oh
there.
yeah.
But we got in touch with them. They said, right, just give us a message, send us, you know, some clips or whatever, or some photos, just to sort of get an idea of what they were expecting. We were coming there talking about, look, we've got this product. This is what we think's going to work. This is the venue that would be perfect for it. They were struggling getting the crowd in at this point, weren't they now? Because this was when they were on the way down, going out of business anyway. So
The brewery didn't even know they existed, so not many other people didn't. They were just open. They were open for the sake of being open a lot of times. And
I think they had a rock night on a Friday, didn't they, called Overdrive or something?
I think it was a Thursday night. They had an emo on that did quite well. But so that was their bread and butter. So we said, look, that's the crowd we're wanting to bring in. But on a weekend, these are open. That's great. And we were shocked at how, because we were just expecting, we'll send this email, we'll come back. At least we tried. Yeah. But no, they said, yeah, let's go for it. Here's some dates.
Have a meeting. They wanted a meeting, didn't they?
So, well, they wanted a few meetings. I think we organised a few meetings. And the meetings drastically went downhill. Like you were saying earlier, we came in.
There's some photos now. Look at the Crown. Look at the set with that place. It's unbelievable. You can see the dance floor is absolutely massive. There was a full theatre setup where you could have had all the cameras on
Dressing
the top.
rooms. There was about 100 rooms upstairs for people to get changed in and stuff like that. They had their own lighting rigs. They had their own sound system. They had absolutely everything you could want to run a wrestling show.
Literally the biggest
The
screen
biggest screen in
Bury,
Middlesbrough. Yeah, well, that's what they're. Look, they can give us the crown for a night. It's not going to be a big deal for us. The risks for them, the risk was all on us. Like, it was us that was, like, you know, putting the money into the shows. It was us that was putting our, you know, our time, our money, our efforts into these shows. So
all
it wasn't.
they want to do is sell a few
All
drinks.
that, yeah, well, yeah. If they sell a couple of drinks, great. If not, they're not busy on Saturdays anyway. So they were more than happy to do it, but they wanted a couple of meetings with us first, just to sort of get the logistics down. Like, okay, we're going to have the ring come in this way, which is what I thought. Well, what everyone thought is what you needed to do at the time. You need to have everything pinpointed, and, like, you know, we were really sort of like back then trying to be as organised as possible about stuff. So I think the first meeting we met up in Middlesbrough, and we met up super early to try and we'll go to a bar and we'll have one drink and we'll talk over a thing. And I'm sure we had like things written down we were going to give them as like a proposal, even like we had all this
take it
sort
super
so seriously. Like, we dressed smartish, you know, all this stuff. But us being us, we went to a bar, and then this one drink turned into about 5, and then which ended to another bar, which ended us over the road in a bar from like, fucking hell, like, we got this meeting in 5 minutes. We went there, and thank God that it was ran by these two people, because they were as clueless as the day's long.
And that was what was hilarious. We showed up thinking, oh my God, we're not professional enough. We've ruined it. And they were even less professional than us. When we showed up, they weren't even there. We remember we always brain on the door to get in.
We were stood outside for an hour trying to get in, like phoning them and all sorts. And they came, and I think they were hung over to pieces. And we were there half cut, just like, they lived together.
40 odd, and the other was like 18.
Like, yeah, and like the girlfriends lived with them who were the barmaids then. It was just this weird setup, but it was great. And we sat down, and they were buzzing. We'd done this portfolio, it was less work they'd have to do. They were like, look, great, sorted. And that's when we knew we had it. But they said, look, maybe, and it was about maybe 3 months out, maybe a bit longer. They said, come, you know, a couple of times before then, we'll have other meetups and stuff, which led to us having about 3 or 4 meetings, which gradually turned into us realising that they're on the same wavelength as us. And I think the second one we were fucking hammered. And they had like scaffolding up all around for the lighting rigs. And I was like, can I climb on this? Will this support me? And I'm like hammered trying to climb up this scaffolding rig in this meeting.
You were going, can I come off this?
Yeah, can I come off this? But like normally a venue would be like, who are these two Rajis? They were like, well, hey, if it will support you.
Well, this is where we were looking at each other like this.
We realised we could get away with murder here. And then one of the meetings, I have a friend in Hartlepool called Petch, and I love him to pieces. He's genuinely the funniest lad I've ever met, but he's not on this planet. And he texted me being like, where you at? And I'm like, oh, I'm in Middlesbrough. He's like, right, I'll meet you there in 2 hours. And I was like, no, Jim, like, we're having to go to this meeting. And then we're in this bar. Fucking Pet shows up with this bag, and we're like, what's in this bag? And he'd been to a vinyl record shop and bought the most abstract vinyl record you could ever think of, like the Eloquent Art Farmer Volume 2 and stuff like that. And he just used to encourage us to get drunk. So Pet showed up to us with a bunch of meetings, and like he knows less about wrestling than this couch we're sitting on.
You just go up to people on the streets and be like, "Hey, are you coming to my mate's wrestling night?"
Oh,
And
yeah.
a flyer.
So we got the show set in stone, dates and stuff. So we're like, right, well, we need to promote it. And going back, this is 5-6 years ago when, you know, it wasn't as easy. 7 years ago. It wasn't as easy as just, you know, realising now everything's done online, and that's our best way to do it. We thought we had to get posters out, we had to flyer, word of mouth. We thought we had to do all this because it was a brand new territory, and we were brand new to promoting. So we would look and see what was happening in Middlesbrough, and anything we thought that would remotely, like, we'd go on nights out with a pocket full of flies and just hand them out in bars and stuff, and if we got caught, we'd get kicked out the bars, but we'd just try and do that. We'd do everything. We'd put posters up illegally anywhere we could find them, like in every shop we could see. And there was this one time, there was a Comic-Con in Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
And
what was it actually called? It was like
T-Side Unleashed is what it was called.
T-Side
Yeah.
Unleashed. God.
This is another thing. We hadn't just got the date sorted. We'd got a ring sorted. We'd got a sound. We'd sorted out the sound system. We'd sorted out someone to do sound. We'd sorted out a ring crew, which were coming from halfway across the country and were very expensive. So hard to get it. We got staging set up. We'd booked talent. We'd booked Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan Webster. We'd booked Rob Cage. We'd booked Jimmy Havoc. We booked everyone. Zach Gibson was booked. There's like, if you look at the initial list, it's a who's who. Viper, Kaylee Ray. They were all booked for the show. So we sat in the Southfield in Middlesbrough, and we sat there, and we're like, right, we'll have these couple of drinks, and we'll go pocket full of flies, posters, everything. And then all of a sudden we hear from across the car park, "Get up, lads!" And Petch somehow knew we were there. And Petch came, he's like, "What are you doing today?" Like, we're going to the Comic Con. He's like, fucking I'll come with you. Help you promote. And we're like, well, an extra pair of hands will be good. So we started boozing more in the Southfield. And then we're like, right, let's get a taxi. Because this was like, it wasn't in Middlesbrough City Centre. It was about a 10, 15-minute taxi ride away. Yeah. We completely forgot what we were in the taxi for. We'd had a couple of drinks. We were just chatting away with the taxi driver. And then we pull up outside this hotel.
The taxi driver's like, "Where you at then, lads? Where you going?"
And we're just dressed like normal lads. We're having a couple of drinks. We're talking about football and stuff in the taxi. And we pull up outside of this hotel. And I kid you not, there's every cosplayer under the sun there, dressed up to the nines.
Robots, there was full-on Transformers and everything.
What do you call that big, is it a Yeti? Something out of
Like
a Star Trek or
Yeah,
something.
like the...
Yeah, he walked past the car. And it's never going to do it justice, the story, but we pissed ourselves laughing with the taxi driver. Like,
where have you brought me here, lads?
Where have you brought us here? We couldn't get out. And what the poor people walking outside the taxi must have thought, this taxi's pulled up. And there's 4 people in it crying, laughing, like punching the seats, laughing. So we're like, oh, fuck, right, come on, we're here. Let's go promote.
There was a like a wrestling figure stall where they had like wall-to-wall wrestling figures. And Caden loves his wrestling figures. You walked up to them and literally just started naming every figure, what series it was, when it was from, who it was, and all that. And he was like, "Mate, you're going to have to piss off because I can't just have you stood here just telling me what all my figures are for like half an hour. I left you and I came back and you were still stood telling them what his figures are."
So we went to the bar and we got drinking. We ended up talking to someone from the council who was going to sponsor the show.
That's where we got the name Council Handshake.
Council Handshake,
Where
yeah.
you
Shake your hand and look at the camera. So we did that. And then we were like, right, should we go? And Petch was the one that was like, no, we're going to go in there and we're going to have one more effort getting it promoted. I don't think we've done enough. So, all right, Jim. And I don't know too good how Comic-Cons work, but I think they have vendors there, like, which are the draws. And from what I understand, the main draw of that Comic-Con was there was some woman that was in Star Trek. Star Wars, something like that. And she's an American woman. She was sat on the table.
I think she's a big deal, like when you're like off the original Star Wars films. But I know less about Star Wars than anything.
Right,
So
preaching to the choir. So we're like, where's Jimmy? And I see him do this, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Petch goes up to this woman's table where there's a queue of people lined up for a photo, goes right to the front, half cut, and goes, "Yeah, excuse me, my mate's over there. They're having a wrestling night on at the Crown. Do you mind taking these flies and just hand them out?"
no, he was asking if she wanted to come.
Oh, yeah, do you want to come?
Do you fancy coming out? Like, that's the big draw. She's from America.
And I'm pretty sure that's when we got kicked out. I'm pretty sure we got kicked out after that. And then, I don't know, we went back to the Crown, I think, and ruined our lives there a bit more.
So we'd done our best attempt to fly her. We tried everything under the sun, hadn't we, to get them flyers out. We must have bought so many thousand. I think we bought like 2,000 or 3,000 flyers. So too many, far too many. There's still a bunch of them left, and it's a shame we haven't got one right now. You should have brought them ones with you that you have. And I've got 2 big A0 posters, massive posters, the original ones we used to have outside the Crown. There's that photo of us outside the Crown there, look. I got that photo. I think Petch took that photo of me there, outside the Crown with our poster. We were so buzzing every time we used to walk past, saying, "There's our poster." Yeah. But we had that date set in stone, and so we thought, October the 4th, and it was at this point where they were like, "We've got the licenses, don't worry about it, lads, we've got it all sorted, the council are giving it the go-ahead." So our heads had been filled full of magic at this point by Dumb and Dumber, telling us what we were able to do. Oh yeah, it's all sorted. Even the council's been on the phone to us. They've told us it's all ready to go. So we were buzzing. We were ready to go. We spent months promoting this show. We did.
We booked wrestlers. Bear in mind, by this point, we'd booked wrestlers, we booked a ring, we booked a ring crew, we
Promo
booked
videos
sharing,
we made,
we'd had people send in promo videos, we had people's travel taken care of, we had hotels booked for them, we had everything sorted. And then I'll never forget it. It was one night I was walking along Hartlepool and I got a phone call, and I think it was all of like maybe a week before.
It wasn't. It was. I think it was 3 days.
3 days before. It must have been like the Tuesday or something. The show was going to be the Friday, and it was you in a state just like, the show's cancelled. There's nothing they can do. And I was like, you know when you hear some bad news, but you were half expecting that bad news. And I was just like, well, no, what do you mean? And the excuse Dumber and Dumber told us was that the council have told us that if any physical contact happens on this show, not only would the venue be shut down, we and all the participants would be put in jail.
Would be arrested.
Arrested on site. So like, what? How can we do this? Even the point where we were going to do Greco-Roman
was the
wrestling.
way around it.
We've been out tonight. Rise October 4th, that's tomorrow night. Technicality, you know, it's tomorrow, even though it's 4th because it's past midnight. But whatever. Let's forget about that for the time being. What I'm telling you right now is that we were meant to be wrestling. I've come down from London. I'm in Middlesbrough. It's a 7-hour journey on a fucking coach. It doesn't matter. Irregardless of that, some little prick cowardly called the council and said, don't let them wrestle. Let them do catch as catch can at best, which we can't do. And if anyone comes off their feet, we're going to make sure that you can't wrestle. So we can't wrestle, unfortunately, because we're not going to be these conformist bitches that show sports entertainment. We're extreme.
We will not conform.
We're going to try and do something different. No, we're not going to try it. I take that word back. Forget that word. We're going to do it. And we're going to revolutionise wrestling in England because we're sick of these little bitches that do and say as they please. They have their cliques. They have their politics. We sniff my ass, sir. Come over here. Come here. Sniff my ass and you can be my champion. Fuck you. Fuck whoever cancelled the show because Rise is going to be the revolution of professional wrestling in England and Leo Darwin is going to be the forefront high jump runner. Boom City, bitches.
Really weird thing where if there's any physical contact while two people are stood up, it was something really weird. If two people are on the feet and physically touch each other, then you're going straight to HMP.
So we were like, right, we'd had Joel booked, we had the Fidian booked all the way from Philadelphia he's from, isn't he?
Yeah, Philadelphia. So this is the thing as well. We, the show would have been so funny. We had Stingray Stevenson versus Ophidian the Cobra in a Steve Irwin memorial match. And this was like randomly like 7 years after he died. It wasn't even like a big... And it wasn't on the anniversary of his death. It wasn't anything. We just thought it was fucking hilarious.
Stingray Stevenson.
We'd looked into renting costumes from costume shops in Middlesbrough where people could dress as different members of the animal kingdom and dance around the ring. We were going to have 4 10-bell salutes to Steve Irwin. The match was... It was so weird. So we'd had
Stingray Stevenson versus Ophidian the Cobra.
Yeah, and it was going to be the Steve Irwin memorial match, and we had graphics made for it. I wish we could find the graphics. Hopefully we can in the one soon.
It's like a photo of Steve Irwin. Like,
If we can find the graphics, that'll be great.
there they are there. That's your tale of Bob Cranky. Steve Irwin. Stingray Stevenson versus Ophidian the Cobra.
And bearing in mind, Middlesbrough loves its wrestling, but Ophidian from Shikara Pro Wrestling, who at the time wasn't really a big promotion in Philadelphia, it was a very niche thing, that no one really knew who he was.
Check this out. Yeah.
He happens to be a wrestling promoter, which doesn't come as too much of a surprise.
Kept us from being able to perform for you here tonight.
I'm about to drop you right to the floor.
We could have done the easy thing and cancelled the whole show. But we decided we can not give you violence tonight. But we can make sure to give you a good fucking party.
Might be able to control the violence, but they most definitely cannot stop the party.
I will still be the sexiest host, the evolution of evolution, Leonardo Darwin, Mr. Godzilla, and you will see a show like you have never done before because Rise is just getting started.
I've been trying to tell Caden for our whole time we've known each other, you need to start getting into hardcore wrestling. That's where your niche will be. And I'd obviously, like we've been talking about, I'd found my niche doing this character, just starting from scratch, complete, fresh slate, totally different, something different to what everyone else is doing. And I was saying to Caden, look, you need to do something similar. And your niche is hardcore wrestling. But at this point, Caden was thinking, well, I've not really got the right to be doing these crazy hardcore matches or death matches when...
That's it. Like, we still had enough respect for wrestling. No, we were only 7 years deep in saying that now.
And
That's ridiculous, yeah. You were going to be off the first show, and I was there, and I was going to save money, because by having me in a match, I was invested in the company to where I wouldn't have took a paycheck for that first show. So having me in a role would have saved us money on the show. That's what it boiled down to, because the first show was going to cost so much money. And you know, again, like we were 5, 6, 7 years deep. But what right did we think we had to be doing hardcore wrestling? We protected the business that much, and somehow you ended up convincing me to do it, and it was going to be Mike Mason, Jimmy Havoc, and me in a death match.
Like the surprise entrance.
The surprise entrance, because all my buddies were going to be there hammered drunk, and I was going to come to the Libertines from the back of the building and do like a Sandman entrance, and we were going to have this mental match. So thank God didn't happen. I mean, it might have been good. It probably would have been good. The Good Doctor had a good one eventually with them. But, so what happened is, like, we'd sold tickets as well. We'd sold a bunch of tickets.
For how like, hard Middlesbrough is for a draw, and how much we'd been advised over the years, do not try and sell tickets in Middlesbrough. We had so much interest for that show, didn't we? Because like I was saying about the Stale Cats that we'd got involved as well, who were like this fire-breathing dance troupe from Leeds. But they'd done it, they were well known in Middlesbrough for doing gigs at Sumo. So that's the first poster we had, and we had like a double-sided poster, didn't we, where it was the Stale Cats on one side and then the wrestling on the other side. So, and we'd gone down that route because we thought we need to make this different to every other show that you see in the country. And having that extra thing where they were going to come out, open the show, breathing fire, entertaining the crowds while they were queuing up, and we were going to have them. Yeah,
we wanted to make it feel like an occasion. We wanted to make it like when you've been on that night out, and like fucking hell, that nightclub we went to last night, they had fire breathers and all sorts. We wanted to make people feel like they got the money's worth from coming to this wrestling show, and it wasn't just another wrestling show. So we did all this extra stuff just to make it happen. But then, like you say, 3 days before we realised we got the plug, and we'd had the Steel Cats booked, we had everything. So we're like, right, what do we do? And we're like, the Dumb and Dumber said, we can reapply for this license, but it'll take this long to do it. You booked it for that night. What do you want to do? You can still do something that night, but it can't be wrestling. So we thought, well, people have tickets, so what we'll do is we can either issue a refund to people, which I think a couple of people took.
We offered the refund, but we said we're going to put this night on for free if you've already got tickets.
If you've already got tickets, and I think we were charging something stupid like a fiver, maybe even less, 2 or 3 quid in, and we'd had the Steel Cats there, so we were going to have the Steel Cats perform. It was called Rise the Pre-Drinks, and then that was when we were going to see people. The Good Doctor, Leonardo Darwin. We still got Fidian there. Oh, there's a hilarious story about Fidian in the train station. And so, long story short, we decided to run like a pre-drinks to hype the show when we were allowed to do it. And we said, look, if you've got tickets...
The council were going to come and actually...
The council did come. Yeah, we needed to prove to the council that we weren't fucking lunatics. Because we'd have death matches and stuff posted over. And if you know anything about Middlesbrough, if you're posting death matches, someone better fucking die. Or else you're false advertising. And
it was like, death match, challenge,
yeah.
Poster, wasn't it?
So we ran this pre-drink show, and it's such a long story to get into, like even this playlist and stuff. So the night before the pre-drinks, we were going to run the pre-drinks. We were going to have the Steel Cats on. We were going to have a band on because we booked bands and stuff as well to play. We haven't even got into those bands going to be playing on the show. It's where we met Aaron, who runs Sad for Life Records, one of my best friends, and who eventually ended up getting his base camp in Middlesbrough, like full circle story. And then so we had all this. So we were like, look, we'll still have the band on. We'll have the Steel Cats on still. Ophidian's there, so we'll have him just come out and G up the crowd. And the Good Doctor had messaged us saying, look, I'd still like to come and hang out with you. He's a Saxon's mate. We hadn't met him. He was Saxon's mate. So fast forward. The night before the show, we'd booked in the hotels we'd already booked in Middlesbrough. And we were like, right, let's just go get drunk the night before. Put on, make chicken soup out of chicken shit, and let's have like a good night. And then hopefully that'll lead to...
There's the Good Doctor when he was getting changed. We had the Good Doctor show up, and I met him on the megabus. And I thought, right, we're gonna, because I was obviously living in Leeds, so I was having to get the megabus up to Middlesbrough. I had it booked already, like a few weeks in advance, because I was so excited for this show. And I'd booked it on the same megabus as Leonardo Darwin. So we got on the bus, and I got on in Leeds, got on with him, and I was on the Carlsbergs then as well that night. So I said, do you want a can? And he said, aye, go on then. So we got talking, we got to Middlesbrough, and we met you, didn't we?
Yeah, well, you, for some reason this happens every time I would meet you in Middlesbrough. I'd arranged to meet you at a time, and then 3 hours later you'd show up. Because there was always some train issues or something, or whatever. So I would go to this bar, and it was a rough bar. It was called the Central. And I was sat in the Central, and I was just waiting for you to show up. And the Central was about a 10-minute walk from the train station. And you messaged me saying, we're going to be there in 5 minutes. I was like, all right. And I'd never met the Good Doctor. And my first impression of him is this fella, done up to the nines, looking like Adrian Street outside the bus station, like Burberry scarf on and everything.
25.
Yeah. And he was just eating a banana. And I was like, hello, mate, you must be the good Patrick. Yeah. So we're walking along and I'm just like, this is a bit weird and awkward, you know, we never met this guy. And then you straight away, because I used to smoke weed at the time. So I think me and you got stoned straight away.
We sparked a joint up.
Yeah, and the good doctor told us a hilarious story about weed. We went back to the hotel and there's one thing you can say about the good doctor, he can drink. So we got pissed as a fart, like hammered drunk with the good doctor, and it was just like...
We recorded it all. It's what a shame it is, because I've managed to get a few bits, but I mean, we recorded that full night, didn't we? And it all went missing. And we did this whole angle where the good doctor had phoned up and got like Saxon's flight cancelled and stuff like.
Saxon's flight cancelled, and we're in the Metro Inns, which is like the crackhead hotel in Middlesbrough, because it's all we could afford. At the time, thinking, we're 20 and 21-year-old kids, we don't have money. Like, and we funded all this. We'd lost a fortune, so we're in this really ropey hotel, which we still stop to this day whenever in Middlesbrough. And we're running up and down the corridors trying to film these promos and stuff. And the good doctor's being outrageous. Oh yeah, it was such good times looking back. And then we had the pre-drinks the next night, and then you know.
So and I had like a full bus full of mates, all my mates, all my childhood mates, all my mates growing up as teenagers, a full minibus full of them all coming to see this thing that I'd built up all my life. I'd finally got this chance to run my own show, and there wasn't even a ring there.
The Crown as well were late opening the doors for some reason for this pre-drinks. The next day, the night before, sorry, we're like, fuck, we need to sort playlists out, we need to do all this, because that was all our responsibility. They had all the equipment, we needed to do all the work. That's probably why they were so keen to let us on. So, like, right, what are we going to do? So we knocked together a 10-song playlist when we were still, like, hungover, half drunk, thinking, don't worry, when we're there, we'll be able to sort the rest. And these songs were ridiculous. It was like, Murder on the Dance Floor, Gotta Get Through This.
It was like a school disco.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
We thought the irony would translate, didn't we?
The irony didn't translate, no.
And we got Aaron's band, and, like, the lead singer of the band's, like, a huge name singer now, isn't he? He's, like, a big, like, signed artist. And it was, like, this band called Bilingual, they were called, weren't they, at the time? So Aaron and the band showed up. They there all night. It was Aaron's birthday as well. It was like his 21st birthday, this huge deal. Most of the crowd were his mates. Aye, go on. I'll get one in a second. We nearly finished now anyway, because this will be it, and then we'll talk about what happened in a future episode. But we got to the venue. We had the band there. They were sitting there all night long. So it was just Ophidian and Patrick, the good doctor, coming out, cutting a random promo now and again. We'd have the Steel Cats performing, but everyone got so hammered, and it was an amazing night when we look back, and it was so hilarious. And the council did show up, and this is the thing, we'd been promised all night, the council are going to be here, they're going to show up, and they're going to make sure they're going to watch and see if it's like good enough to be on next time. So after half an hour, the council realised they'd made a huge mistake, and we weren't actually going to be like cutting each other's heads off and killing each other. Yeah, they thought it was a literal death match, so like that's why the show was shut down. So they showed up, and that's a bit of a schoolboy error when we look back, the fact we had death match on our first ever poster, but we were trying to stand up. We were trying to stand out, weren't we? And it was Middlesbrough, so literal death matches do happen. So anyway, the council shows up. They give us the go-ahead. They were like, right, yeah, fine, you can do the next show whenever you want. Just reorganise it. It'll obviously take a few weeks for the licence to clear, say maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So the guy come up to me, he's like, oh, great news. We've got a date confirmed. It's going to be November the 22nd, which was like 5 or 6 weeks later. So we had like a few weeks only to prepare a brand new show from scratch, do all the promotion over again, and yeah, all this money that we'd lost thousands. So we had to just like be completely on the back foot, thinking, right, how on earth we're going to do this? But we sent Ophidian out to go and give the announcement, didn't we?
So we told Ophidian, and everyone had no idea who he was. He was coming out and he was like, I'm from Philadelphia. And bear in mind, it's mine and his mates out there at the show who has no idea. It's a guy with a snake mask and a denim jacket.
I know he goes, hiss it up the borough.
Yeah.
The original promo was in the
ECW arena. We got Ophidian cutting promos in the ECW arena for it and all sorts. So he comes out and he announces that the council have said they come to the show, and it's generally one of my favourite moments in wrestling. The roof came off. All our mates were just like, oh, what's going on here? The fucking roof came off. We're going to put some photos of our friends in masks and all sorts.
Put the video on now when the announcer here, look.
As well as these pre-drinks, Uproar, which is like a really famous metal thing, They were playing the after party. Somehow we'd managed
Get
to get
Uproar.
Uproar to
Is that
play
after
our
party?
after
They're
party.
huge in like Birmingham
Yeah,
and stuff. and down
ridiculous to run all the nightclubs there. So we had that going on, but like the draw was so weird. So we.
south. We did get a decent. There was
Oh
like 80
yeah,
people
80
there,
people
wasn't
there,
it?
but fuck knows what they're expecting. Fuck knows what they're seeing. So we ended up going to Sumo afterwards with all the guys and stuff, which would be a theme every time we ran in Borough. And my last memory of the Good Doctor from that night is being in a taxi with Petr on the way back to Hartlepool and thinking, God, I wonder where the Good Doctors went. And the Good Doctors, on his own, with a group of about 20 people from Millsborough at 5 in the morning outside of Sumo, all cuddling, linked arms, football singing
about
football
Arsenal or something
songs,
or
yeah,
something, I don't even
singing
know
about,
what, like.
and yeah, my God, and Fijian had to get a train to Wales or something to
Oh,
make
that was
us to
women
Wales.
as well, the bouncer. So we all showed up to the queue in Sumo. And anyway, this big fight breaks out. There's fucking hell on. And the bouncer's like getting dragged back. Because you have to drag the bouncers back in Borough. And the bouncer's doing that to the guy. And we there like, oh, no, it's all right, mate. We sent like a feed and he's like, dude, this reminds me of Philadelphia. I'm like, oh, it's a bit different to Philadelphia, like. And anyway, we got to Sumo. This all kicks off. And he's like that, shitting himself. So I said, it's all right, it's all right. Next thing you know, he turned around, the bouncer's going like, he's going, you say you, mate, I'm fucking coming for you in your dreams. And he's looking at him like that. He turned round and went straight back to the hotel. He said, nice to meet you guys. I know. Nice to meet you guys. Off he went. So I think me, you and Patrick went into Sumo and that's where it all ended with. And all my mates from Bishop went, they all got kicked out one after the other. Individually all got like kicked out, sent out. So it was the craziest night ever, and that was what was the first night to Rise, and that was how it all started and how it like meant to carry on, wasn't it? And it was like a snowball effect from then on. But we'll leave it there, and that's it. That was how it all started, and it was just further chaos from then on. So we're going to do another episode in the future, talking about how we went from there.
I can't wait to do the rest of them. It's been great, like sitting, reminiscing, talk about this. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time to do it. Sometimes we're that caught up in.
Oh, and there's the Sumo.
There's the Sumo. If that's not cute to leave, I don't know what it is. Right, I'll see you later.
So thank you for watching the first YouTube special of O'Doherty's Den, if you've made it this far. So join us next time when me and Caden will be going into a bit more depth about how we got started 10 years ago at CRW. And then how the rise began in Leeds. And how we went from 35 people at one show to 350 at the next. So make sure you subscribe to both channels. And I'll see you in a bit, Bonnie lad. Whoosh!